I welcome you all to this session on circular economy in telecom sector, vision and strategy. This session is being organized by the Department of Telecommunication in association with stakeholders, various stakeholders. Now I first request the chairperson and the panelists to be please seated on the dais. First I invite Sri R.N. Pillai, Member Technology, Digital Communication Commission, Department of Telecom. Sri Pradeep Singh, DDG, Geological Survey of India. Sri Pankaj Miglani, Director, Supply Chain Management, Airtel. Dr. Rachna Arora, GIZ. Dr. Shilpi Karmakar, Lead Project Officer, UNDP. One more panelist, Dr. Shivangi Agrawal, will join short. You have joined. Okay, fine. So Shivangi Agrawal, she is from recycling industry. She has also joined. So we have very distinguished persons on the dais. As you know, circular economy is nowadays a very important topic. Since 2021, when our Honorable Prime Minister talked about circular economy on 15 August from the ramparts of the Red Fort, there has been very strong emphasis on this area from the government side. Various ministries have come out with their action plans, with their programs, and Department of Telecom is also working in this area. So today we are organizing this session to discuss the various issues involved in circular economy in telecom sector. First, I invite our chairperson, Sri R.N. Pillai, Member Technology, to give his opening remark.
Respected panelists, Dr. Rachna Arora, Director, Climate Change and Circular Economy, GIZ, Dr. Shilpi Karmakar, Project Manager, Circular Economy, UNDP, Shivangi Agrawal, Lead Project Office, Caro Sambhav Private Limited, Pankaj Miglani, Director, Supply Chain Management, Bharti Airtel, Pradeep Singh, DDG and NMH, GH2, Calcutta, Sri Arun Agrawal, DD Satellite, and distinguished guests. Very good afternoon to all of you. The attendance in the hall, it reminds that circular economy needs attention. So this circular economy is a model of production and consumption which involves sharing, leasing, reusing, repairing, refurbishing and recycling existing materials and products as long as. In this way, the life cycle of the product is extended. In practice, it implies reducing waste to a minimum. When a product reaches to the end of its life, its materials are kept within the economy wherever possible, thanks to the recycling. These can be productively used again and again, thereby creating further value. This is a departure from the traditional, the linear economical model, the economic model, which is based on take, make, consume, throw away the pattern. This model implies on the large quantity of cheap, easily accessible materials and energy. So what we benefits to derive that protecting the environment, reusing and recycling products slow down the use of the natural resources, reduction in total annual greenhouse gas emission. Second, reducing new raw material dependence. Recycling raw material mitigates the risk associated with the supply, such as price volatility, availability, and import dependency. Third benefits, creating jobs and saving consumers money. Redesigning materials and products for circular use would also boost innovation across different sectors of the economy and create jobs. The most renowned definition of this means that to our mind, what is the circular economy that must, unless we define, how can you address it? The most renowned definitions has been many literatures. Go to the literature review. Generally referred as EMF, that is Ellen MacArthur Foundation, introducing the circular economy as the industrial economy that is restorative and regenerative by intention and design. Webster, another literature review adds that circular economy is one that is restorative by design and which aims to keep products, components, and materials at the highest utility and value at all times. So every year, more than 100 billions of resources enter the economy, and only 8.6% they are reused or recycled. This situation unsustainable. More we that return the to the economy is only 8.6%. That is a study says. That means the 90% of the natural resources they are going to last at the moment, and that is not sustainable in long run when we are having the large scale industry. According to the Circularity Gap Report 2023, the global economy is only 7.2% circular and getting worse every year. Study of sample of 25 European nations for the period of 2010 and to 2019 that shows that major impact of the circular economy in achieving the sustainability development, which has positive effect on economy, environment, and society. However, the results show that impact of each circular economy value source on the key sustainable development dimension varies. While renewable energies and reuse reduces the impact on the environment, recycling has no effect, and repair increases the greenhouse emission. There is a contradiction, but lot more work has to go. We will discuss these aspects from the experts. I am not the expert in that. And to touch upon the very principles, the circular economy is based on three principles: designing out the waste and pollution, keeping products and material in use at the highest possible value. Third is the regenerating natural systems. Respecting these three principles lead to a cascading order of sources of value of the circular economy. One, renewable resources, reuse and sharing. Third is repair and manufacturing. Fourth is what implies to our telecom industry. The strategy paper of circular economy published by GSM report 2000, GSMA report 2022. They are recommended 9 recommendations. Keep the current equipment in active use as far as possible. Second, share infrastructure with other operators. Develop awareness on circular economy. Today, the presence shows that. Give refurbished the same presence as the new in the business request and proposal. Create common metrics and guidelines. The carbon dioxide equivalent emissions, the reuse, share at the purchase, fair benchmarking on the global CO2 norms. Rethink The business relationship as low carbon technology, eco-design products encourage manufacturers to innovate more sustainable solutions, create and interconnect marketplaces. Operator could develop, interconnect or promote consolidation of market among the telecom operators. Ensure energy efficiency is a priority in the network deployment. The industry should continue to drive improvement in the energy efficiency. Eco-friendly design principles should be applied to system architecture. Software development, artificial intelligence could be applied to the better management of network traffic, optimize equipment sleep cycle. As far as the India is concerned, that the CO2 emission stands at 62 billion tons CO2 equivalent as per the our World Data Organization, which is 8.1% of the global share. Indian telecom industry has its own carbon footprint, which is 2% of the total greenhouse emission and relatively lower compared to the other sectors. As far as telecom sector is concerned, though it is very insignificant, but much more work needs to be done from the government side and also from the industry. The carbon footprint from the telecom service provisioning was 18 million tons of CO2 in 2024 annual. DOT has placed a strong emphasis on its order. Department of Telecom has also taken steps in 2019 order on sustainable telecom and has prescribed mandatory targets for reduction in average carbon emissions, taking the base year of 2011-12. In 2024-25, the achievement is more than 99% reduction in average carbon emission comparing to the 2011-12. Furthermore, for increasing the use of renewable energy for telecom, the DOT has taken up all state and union territories the issues of adopting and implementation of gadget notification of in a power department, and that is the energy, electricity, promoting renewable energy through green energy open access, second amendment rule 2023 of Ministry of Power. 28 states and union territory have adopted. That means there is a trajectory that in adoption of the greenhouse emission norms set by the government of India. And I will just highlight that in the particularly all the government funded projects which is funded by Digital Bharat Nidhi, all the equipments are solar backed. That means this the trust on the energy sector significantly reduced. Particularly, if you look at the saturation project, aspirational project, all the BTSs, they are powered by solar backup. This is the initiative. The eminent panelists will throw more light on it. We'll start with Dr. Rachna Arora. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your very broad-based and very enlightening address and opening remarks. Now we start the panel discussion. So my first question is to Dr. Rachna Arora. Now, telecom is basically a subset of e-waste. So how does she see the scenario of e-waste in telecom? Means what are the issues, challenges in this subsector of telecom as far as e-waste is concerned?
Thank you, sir. And a very interesting, I think, opening remarks were also given. Thanks for inviting us. I would start with a very brief introduction of myself. I am from GIZ, German International Corporation. Um, I think the topic of circular economy picked up, as sir mentioned, in the past few years. And in 2023, when India actually hosted the G20, this topic became a big priority because the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change actually put circular economy together with climate change and the entire mission for life, which is the mission on sustainable consumption, also pretty much there about our lifestyles together. So I think this gained quite a lot of prominence, and I think also comes from the speech from our Prime Minister looking at how do we manufacture. We manufacture more and more, and I think this setup is quite interesting to talk about production, but also see how much resources. I think sir outlined quite a lot about the resource intensity with any sector that we talk about, especially electronics and electrical equipments, and also with the telecom space. So I would say the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, which is a key ministry to actually talk about the entire management of multiple rules, also multiple waste, also includes e-waste as one of the stream where they actually look at uh, the management of end of life, environmentally sound management of electronic waste. So when it comes to electronic waste, there are different schedules, and in one of the schedule, of course, or in the schedule, there are 106 items which are listed by the Ministry of Environment. So telecom forms one of the major, again, a set of equipment which is also listed by the Ministry of Environment. So why it is crucial, and I think I also consider that how the Department of Telecom has actually picked up this topic is quite relevant because it's about how do you look at the entire e-waste as a challenge, electronic waste, but also address the question of production. So that's, I think, where, as it was outlined, sustainable mission or designing of different schemes is what they're taking in. But when it comes to the resource intensity, the numbers mentioned in there, across the globe, we are only 9% circular, which means currently, even if I think Sir mentioned about solar panel, renewable energy, electric mobility, any sector that you look at which is coming as a stream towards environmental benefit is also something you have to consider critically because it is still resource intensive. Even the solar panels at the end of 20 years would actually have an end of life. Similar for telecom equipment and the entire transmission services and everything. Everything has an end of life after a particular period. It could be it could be a polythene bag which is only for 30 seconds. It can be an equipment like a solar panel or a telecom transmission that remains for a few years, 15, 20 years. But the point is, in this sector, the obsolescence rate is very, very high. So when you have a high obsolescence, you are resource intensive, you're also then limiting the entire natural resource which goes into the materials that go into manufacturing any product. So that's why the discussion around circular economy is so much relevant. Ministry of Environment has mandated, so it's by mandate, it's by law that any company that is actually manufacturing through the entire extended producer responsibility led models or by the policy guidelines of the Ministry of Environment, that we actually have targets towards each and every company which is actually manufacturing, and most of you would be aware about it, that there are targets to how much a company is manufacturing and how much they have to actually recycle at the end of it. Now, when we say manufacturing and recycling, of course, it sounds very easy and do, but if you look through the entire 2 years of the deliberation that has gone into at least bringing out, thinking about what are the priorities within this sector, which kind of products, and how do you actually streamline the discussions, has been quite, I would say, engaging. And the Department of Telecom has actually considered mobilizing both private sector as well as the recyclers, international organizations, civil society into this discussion because it's actually interesting to address the topic with different actors in there. So I think that's one area. When I see from the circular economy perspective, there are three I's to it as I see, three I. One of them is, of course, innovation. When I entered this hall itself, it actually talked about innovation. So circular economy is all about how do you design a product which is actually innovative enough. Maybe you just do smaller assemblies, which is easy to just take out and then replace. So you're not every time discarding a mobile or a telecom equipment, you're actually upgrading systems by which you're actually reusing, you're re-optimizing your resources. That's one element or few of the R's that can actually bring in some sustainability into the space. So that's one area where disassembly or dismantling a device can be easier if it is designed for that end of life stage which might come. The second element, quite crucial, is the consumption stage, where we can still look at what kind of services can we have. And this was quite a lot deliberated into the discussions as well, that when we talk about enhancing the life of the product, but not every time buying a product. For instance, if I have a car, I don't need to buy a car. I can buy a service. Today I have Olas and Ubers which are providing a service. So can we, and for telecom industry, that's a big area where we can think about procuring a service rather than buying. And that's, I think, pretty much evident, quite well accepted by the fact. So consumption is one area where, of course, the industry plus we as consumers play a big role on extending the life of a product, whether it's a textile that I wear, or whether it's a mobile that I use, or whether it's a building that I'm using. So it's all across the sectors that we enhance the life of the product. The last and the third stage is, of course, the end of life, where it's very, very critical to follow the standards as outlined by the Ministry of Environment. As per the Central Pollution Control Board, there are close to, I think, 500, 560 recyclers in the country, recyclers and dismantlers. But in terms of the recyclers being set in multiple cities, it's also difficult to actually, for them to get the material into their stream. So there's a big challenge there, and that's why I focus on these 3 Rs. That circular economy for telecom actually means innovation. It also looks at inclusion, because a lot of waste actually goes into the informal economy, the kabadi walas that we have. And also it's about information. So multiple times the information, the data around, and sir mentioned some of the GHG emission or the material consumption data. Still, when it comes to telecom or electronic waste or EEE sector, electronic and electrical equipment sector, there's a lot that needs to be done with all these 106 scheduled items which are on the list of the Pollution Control Board or by the Ministry of Environment. So information is very key. If I know what numbers I'm talking about, then of course I can have much more enriched discussion than just deciding a policy. So this is, I think, just my few opening questions onto the.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rachnaji, for providing an overview. Now I request Shri Pankaj Miglani, Director, Supply Chain Management, Bharti Airtel. As you are looking after supply chain management, please tell us how this aspect can contribute to circular economy, supply chain management, and what Airtel is doing in this area.
Thank you, Arunji, and thanks for inviting me. And let me start, and I echo what Rachnaji just said. I think, when this topic came, if you really look at the circular economy market is pretty big, if we see globally. Data, whatever, it points out, it's talking about by 2026, it might be a 760 billion. Wherein by 2030, we might be reaching to 4.5 trillion, and by 2050, somebody is talking about 25 trillion. Keeping, what you just heard from DDG sir, if it is 7 to 8% today, you can understand telecom is a very small percentage in this overall economy. Maybe there are other sectors around minerals and gas which contribute maximum. So telecom is still lagging as far as this aspect is concerned. And I completely agree with you on, I think, the steps you have taken. And if I have to look at what Airtel does, I think it's we follow that simple, the 3R strategy of reduce, reuse, and recycle. And if you see for last couple of years, in terms of reduction, if I have to talk about it, I think we were one of the pioneers wherein we went in for a sharing of infrastructure. We ended up creating a tower company wherein the 3 biggest competitor came back, and I'm talking of 2010 then, which was clearly 15 years back when Indus Towers was formed. Even prior to that, when we were laying those optical fiber infrastructure, there was a lot of sharing which will happen. Even with our own towers, before the tower industry came into picture, it was, we would be doing a sharing, which was more of a mutual sharing between, you give one tower to a telecom operator and, he'll provide you another passive infrastructure for sharing. So it dates back to that point of time. Now, over a period of time with government intervention, today, if I really look at it, the things are completely different. So, you share infrastructure. In terms of CPs, we try to reuse them. network equipment, each equipment which comes back to warehouse even after end of the life is still tested. We have a firm principle around, there's a philosophy of sweating the assets more and more, so it's a very, you all must be aware, telecom is a very highly capital intensive industry, which takes up, billions of dollars of capex every year. And hence every single rupee needs to be sweated. So, we first try and extend the life. We work with our partners to make sure, even if we have a defined life cycle of 10 years, we actually push them to extend that by taking elongated or a larger period AMCs. Even if, there are few components which are not available, we work with them trying to figure out, how do we do a maintenance? Because it's more, one, trying to reuse it. Second, it also gives you a lot of cost optimization. So there's a win-win which happens both in terms of, what you do to the economy and environment and what it does to the company. In terms of CPs, which is what, we put in a lot of, you would have seen broadband, ONT routers, IPTV set-top boxes happening, or for that matter, a fixed wireless access. There is a complete program around, post churning of the customers, wherein you go back and recover the assets and then try and refurbish them and reuse them. In terms of recycling, we have also gone to the extent of using, the SIM cards. We have tied up with our partners in terms of trying to use a recycled plastic material in that SIM card. We have even attempted that. Then in terms, because we get a lot of electronic equipment, we work with our partners in terms of using reusable plastic, so to say, in packaging. Even in all our warehouses, it's the reusable plastic which gets used in terms of packing, repacking. And even for, the material dispatch, as a part of sustainability, we try and make sure, there are more of CNG vehicles which are available. Now, obviously, all of this does not come without challenges. And as you rightly pointed out, the ecosystem is still not ready. Honestly, if you ask me, while there are a lot of initiatives which are taking, but availability of recycle partners is still not there. In fact, we at times think, we generate so much of e-waste, how do we go and do that? While you today scrap or dispose it off through all the authorized partners or, the certified partners as per the government, but we still believe there is a huge scope of improvement in terms of having a better infrastructure, which is more far-flung and distributed rather than getting centralized and concentrated in only selected places within the country. So there are challenges which I think we need to solve, which will only help us grow this percentage of, assuming it's 8% today, how do we just go back and try and maximize this? And my view is, maybe government has a bigger role to play in terms of either incentives or a tax breaks or infrastructure subsidies coming in some shape and form, or maybe creating a marketplace or ecosystem which allows people to buy and reuse and resell the equipment. So there is a lot to be done. I think we've just started. The last 2-3 years have been pretty much, I think it has picked up steam, but a long way to go.
Thank you, Pankajji, for providing details of the Airtel's work in circular economy. Now we all know that due to recent geopolitical happenings, supply of materials, especially critical raw materials, is now quite vulnerable. And a few countries have got monopoly over it. Many such materials like tungsten, and then vanadium, silicon, nickel, they have to be supplied and they have to be imported. So their availability is very critical for our electronic components and materials. Now I request Shri Pradeep Singh, DDG Geological Survey of India, to tell us how Ministry of Mines is working on this issue to ensure supply of such critical raw materials.
Yeah, thank you, Arunji. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me. So, see, in the Ministry of Mines, a lot of reforms have been initiated in mines and minerals sector since 2015. So, in 2015, we started with the auction regime where all the natural resources, minerals were to be allocated through a transparent mechanism of e-auction. And then in 2023, through an amendment, because we also opened up the mineral exploration landscape of the country, and in 2023 we started with we allowed the private sector also for mineral exploration through notification, gazette notification of Government of India. And in last 2 years only, because this notification started since 2023, and we have about 24 private companies which are now taking up mineral exploration in a large way. And similarly, actually, for recycling also, because as our panelists have said that only we are in electronic waste, we are only 9% circular. But as far as the primary mineral is concerned, so weaning out this, extracting of these critical minerals, we are 0% circular. So we have not been, because all these minerals which are used in electronic items, including the telecom items, they are all these critical minerals are found in a very small quantity, very small proportion with the major mineral, basically the base metals like copper, lead and zinc and gold. So these mines of copper, lead and zinc and gold. So we have to extract these metals like indium, gallium, rhenium, tellurium, etc., which are used in the telecom sector, and they are basically present in a very small quantity. Now Ministry of Mines actually have taken 2-3 very landmark decisions to promote extraction of these materials from the mine tailings, mine dumps, etc., because till now we were not extracting these materials from these mine tailings, because if the secondary mineral was to be reported with the primary material, then it was inviting as much premium as the main material the miner has to pay on the main material. But now in 2025, Ministry of Mines has amended the MMDR Act. So now the critical minerals, there is a list of critical mineral which is there in the 24 critical minerals in Part D of first schedule of MMDR Act. So all these critical minerals, if they are reported, later on reported, if the block goes on auction and later on reported, so the extraction of these critical minerals will not invite any additional premium. Only simple, the miner has to pay a simple royalty on that, and the rate of royalty on the critical minerals varies from about 2% to 3%. Like for lithium and niobium, it is 3%. For rare earth elements, it is 1%. Then primary beryllium, indium, rhenium, and tellurium, it is 2%. And cadmium, cobalt, gallium, selenium, and tantalum, it is 4%. Titanium. So like that, it is, the rate of royalty is very low for critical minerals. And now the very important thing actually for extraction of the critical minerals from the electronic waste which has occurred is that the Ministry of Mines has brought out a scheme of incentivizing the extraction of these critical minerals from e-waste, including LIB scrap, lithium-ion batteries, recycling, and other types of electronic waste. And this scheme is applicable to the R3 and R4 recyclers. That is, it is not applicable to the recyclers who are only producing the black mass. It is applicable to the recyclers who are basically involved in black mass to metal, salt or metal conversion, or R4 recyclers where end-to-end battery scrap to metal salt or metal conversion is taking place. So in this scheme, the larger recyclers which are having a turnover of more than 200 crore, the incentive is up to 50 crore, and for the small players where their turnover is less than 200 crore, the incentive is up to 25 crore. and this is scalable. So like in mineral exploration sector, we have seen that now all these private exploration companies, all major mining companies like Vedanta, Tata, they have now have a subsidiary private exploration company, and they are vigorously taking up private mineral exploration in the country, because our country was heavily dependent on the critical minerals. Though we have a very good potential of these critical minerals, we have a very good geological setup. We were part of the Gondwana land, so our geological setup is same as that of Africa or Australia, where in Australia almost the contribution of mines and metal in their economy in terms of GDP is more than 6%. In some of these states, it is like Western Australia, it is up to 10%. So we have all that material in India. Only thing is that our focus has shifted for exploring of these critical minerals since 2023 onwards maybe. So maybe we are late, so is everybody except China. So the entire world realized this importance of critical minerals after COVID-19 pandemic and maybe this Russia-Ukraine war. So now we are collaborating with the friendly countries, and we are doing everything to source critical minerals from outside as well as to produce critical minerals. So since now we have started exploration in a large way, so we are finding very good. There are so many exciting findings now in India, which I think I cannot reveal right now, but in 5 years from now, we will be, in our country will be making very major discoveries of some of the critical minerals, major discoveries, because we are getting early signatures, we have identified the potential areas. So like that, see, this scheme is scalable. So now this scheme has opened up since 2nd August, and it is open for 6 months, this recycling scheme. So we hope that we will be lot of other enthusiastic companies will join this scheme, will avail the benefit of this incentive, and maybe we will surpass our targets, what we have set for this scheme. And like that, Ministry of Mines, I will not go in much detail. We have a Science and Technology PRISM scheme, where basically we are funding all these research institutions or startups and MSMEs. We are giving an incentive up to 2 crore for developing the technology. That is from concept, from proof of concept to TRL 7 level, means up to a pilot scale. And once it is developed up to a pilot scale, then up to a commercial scale, then the onus will lie with the industry. So that through that PRISM scheme also, we are giving 2 crore of incentive per company. So that scheme also we have started around 2 years back. So that scheme is also gaining popularity. So like that, ministry is taking several baby steps, and we have started about maybe 2 years back only, and the entire spectrum of recycling, critical mineral production, extraction of the critical minerals from mine dumps, tailings, etc. That is picking up, and we have a very exciting future ahead. And we were working together. The controller of mines is also sitting here, Mr. Pushpendra Gaud. So we were working on several of these things. We were part of several schemes which have come out from the Ministry of Mines since 2017 onwards. So thank you all so much.
Thank you very much for briefing us on the various initiatives taken by the Ministry of Mines for ensuring the availability of critical raw materials. Now, my next question is to Dr. Shilpi Karmakar, who is working with UNDP. Now, UNDP is working in various countries. So, how do you see UNDP's work in India, especially in e-waste management? And means, would you like to tell the audience about your work in India in this area? And what interventions do you think are required to take it further?
Right. Thank you, sir, and thank you for inviting us to this panel. Uh, to start with, I would first like to congratulate DOT that on the development of the strategy, vision, and action plan, which is an incredible document developed. So, as we are already, as sir, you mentioned that we are already working in the e-waste sector on the circularity, but apart from that, we are also working on the plastics and other material circularity. And from our experience, what we have learned is that there is a requirement for ecosystem readiness, which sir did mention that although India is progressing quite on the circularity pathways, but yes, the ecosystem is not completely ready to adopt circularity initiatives proactively. So, in my opinion, or from the learnings that we have learned through our years of experience in the circularity sector, is that there are certain key factors which needs to be brought into picture. Uh, I'll talk about one of them is the policy alignment and system strengthening. So there is a requirement of coherence between various ministries so that various circular economy frameworks and other aspects are integrated into the policy reforms. Then coming about talking about the next requirement is the capacity building. As sir mentioned that there is quite an informal and recycling industry existing, but the readiness is something which we need to invest more on. So in terms of capacity building, we have to work with SMEs, the recyclers, the informal sectors, and equip them so that when we integrate right to repair or product as a service into the policy, those streams or those players or actors are equipped to uptake and support the policy integration. Next is Rachana, to add to your three eyes. One I would pick from what Sir said is the infrastructure, and from the other one is the incentivization. So financing mechanism and market incentives is something which would definitely mobilize private sector to adopt circularity principles and initiatives. So how the products are being designed, what is the eco design principles which get some financial incentives, which makes manufacturers or even the consumer to proactively move towards those products. uh, uh, what are those digital passports we are introducing, which provide the businesses and the producers and the consumers as well to proactively move or choose those options, is something I would say as a market incentives. And in terms of financing mechanism, while we understand that taking virgin material and going for a manufacturing process is definitely less cost intensive as compared to if you are going for a recovered or recycled material. So are there any financing mechanism being talked about or can be brought into the picture, green credit systems, any type of circularity incentives for the businesses, not only just for the businesses but the consumers? What a consumer can expect if they return back their any e-waste product or any networking product per se. So some sort of a financing and market incentive mechanisms are required. Last and not the least is the technology transfer and inclusive innovation. While we talk about the entire sector, right from the manufacturer, consumers, and the recycler, in between is a huge informal sector playing into picture, and circular economy integration is also a tool through which we can create jobs for this informal sector, rather than calling them as an informal sector, which is a term which has been widely used. I would like to say that, can we tap in this resource and move it to a more professional and more structured place where more jobs are created, more standards and frameworks are integrated, while policies are designed so that right to repair, the safety of the equipment when they are repaired in the open market, availability of spare parts, all these comes into the picture and make this entire the vision of the circular economy more viable, not just environmentally sustainable, but of course it is friendly to the people who are into the sector, and also is economically viable. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shilpi, for suggesting various measures to carry forward the circular economy business model. Now we all know that e-waste management rules have been notified, and EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility, is one of the most important tools. And for that purpose, recycling industry is the most important player. Now I request Shivangi ji to tell us about the infrastructure available and the gaps in the recycling industry and your suggestions to further improve it.
Hello. Yeah. First of all, thank you for inviting us here, sir, on this panel to speak about this topic, because it's very important for platforms like these to exist. Otherwise, everyone would be working in isolation and these conversations would not happen. I think the speakers before me have covered well enough why circular economy is so important, not just from an environmental perspective, but also because it gives such a big opportunity for new industries to come into play. As you rightly pointed out, sir, extended producer responsibility is one of the policy measures that Ministry of Environment has taken up to promote recycling in electronic waste. But informal sector being a very common topic whenever we talk about waste management, that still prevails, and there are still gaps within the infrastructure that is there in India. First and foremost, I believe, sir, would be how easy it is for consumers to participate, whether it is the end consumer, the common consumers like us, or whether it is enterprise consumers. Something that we have seen time and again in normal business practices as well, if you make it easy for consumers, they'll participate more and more. So it is very important then for us to also make it easy for them to give their waste for proper recycling in a manner that they can rest assured that their waste is going for recycling and not going anywhere else. And while that infrastructure may still exist to a certain extent in metropolitan cities or tier 1 cities, the further you go down into tier 3 cities and towns and villages, that infrastructure doesn't exist nearly to the level that it needs to exist. That gap is then filled by informal sector because they make it very, very easy for consumers to give their waste away. And one more aspect of waste management in India generally is that people don't give their waste away, people sell their waste. So irrespective of what waste type it is, people do expect a monetary return for whatever waste they are giving. And that's true for all consumers, whether it's large companies giving off their old products, or whether it's consumers like you and I when we are exchanging our mobile phones for a new one. So given that, that increases the cost of collection quite a lot, and that is where informal sector ends up thriving a lot, because they are able to cut down their costs on other aspects. So they are able to cut down their costs by not paying fair wages to the workers, or because they don't have to spend too much money on protective equipment while transferring, or they don't have to pay taxes, for example. So there are many ways the informal sector is able to compete when you have to buy waste versus a place where formal sector otherwise struggles a lot. Because the fact of the matter is that within electronic waste, while there are a lot of products or what lot of materials left to recover, the recovery of them takes some time. And if I have given, say, if I bought some phone from Shilpi ma'am for 200 rupees, I am not going to realize the a benefit of that 200 rupees until like 2 months later, till my whole product is opened and recycled and I've gotten my money back. So that is one, the gap in collection systems, and especially in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. On a recycling front, though, I would like to actually divide our materials into two types of materials. One would be the base metals that Sir had, for example, mentioned, like copper, like aluminium, which are often found in good quantities within electronic waste and are generally easier to separate out on a broad level. So once you have separated it out, you can still sell it, but that does not make up the full electronic product. That makes up maybe somewhere from 30 to 50% by weight of the product. The rest of the product is very complex, small parts, small components, which either do not have a solution that works, or they have a solution which is not efficient enough. So you end up wasting a lot of energy and a lot of money trying to recycle it without any actual output coming out. And that stops a lot of recyclers from scaling up a lot as well, because again, once you need initial infrastructure, initial capital to set up that infrastructure, but you also then need capital to scale that infrastructure up. So especially for things like copper, one of the concerns that are always raised by big refineries is that they need good quantums of material to integrate it back into their system, because most recyclers in India are very small scale. Even formal recyclers are relatively very small scale. So for any big refinery to take back copper into the system, it is an adjustment that does not make sense on small scales for them. So you need scale to also make it easier for manufacturers to bring that material back into their production line. The second concern or second type of material would be, again, as Sir had mentioned, trace materials, which are very, very important, but in very, very small quantities. So take neodymium, for example. Neodymium is present in most permanent magnets, and permanent magnets are there in a lot of electronic products, right from your windmills to these speakers that we're hearing the sound from, to our mobile phones, a lot of any motor that you will see. Very, very important product, very, very important thing. But in a whole computer, by weight, it may be 0.5, 0.3% of weight, that magnet. So it takes so much effort and so much money to collect enough material for me to extract enough neodymium. And if I don't have enough quantity, it's also very difficult for me to go and seek a buyer who will be willing to take that neodymium from me. And as a recycler, if I don't have a platform like this where I can raise these concerns, and if I don't have, say, schemes such as the schemes that are being taken out by Ministry of Mines or by Department of Science and Technology to set up that platform, it becomes very, very difficult to even know what are the quality standards, for example, that the manufacturers might be looking for, because it's not as easy as I have taken out some material out of it.
Thank you very much, Shivangi ji, for providing information about the recycling industry, their challenges, and how we can further improve the situation. Now we are coming to the end of the session. We can take one or two questions if there are any from the audience.
Thank you for the opportunity. I have just one question. How can circular economy transform the traditional economic growth approach? How can circular economy transform the way we think about the economic growth theories or economic growth approach?
Does it? Yeah, now it works. So I think if I understand you correctly, your question is how can circular economy transform the regular economy, or how can we look at optimization? Yeah. So as I think the entire panel, I think discussion was around looking at the entire value chain, no? To look at the entire, so if you pick up plastics, textile, electronics, telecom, any product that we actually talk about, has a life, and or it starts with the origin, which is extraction of material, towards multiple stages in the manufacturing, production, and also in consumption, and of course in consumption multiple other loops. And then, so traditionally we were designed as linear. We were extracting materials, we use a material, we have an end of life. That's what it is. But the point is of circular economy, as sir also like mentioned about, is restorative. So today, if I'm making any material, as it was mentioned, say with the Nokia example as well, that if I have a telecom tower or if I have a service, I'm actually looking at providing, sharing it. I'm not looking at an end of life coming in 5 years, because in 5 years my loop is too small. No? And the point is also, like, I think the multiple discussions around recycled material to be used in production. Now that's another loop that you can do, as sir mentioned, with the entire schemes that he is looking at, that when I'm using or manufacturing a mobile, a device, I can actually use recycled plastics, or we can use recycled gold, rather than every time using a virgin material. That's the thing of making that linear, transforming to a circular. It's a restorative economy. A lot of you need the ecosystem to be created, as it was mentioned, and of course government, public, private sector, and consumers to be engaged into the entire process. Otherwise it's very difficult, because it is systemic thinking. It is a change, it's a mindset change, and every sector has its own challenges to address. So it's, yeah, that's how it is. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
But this circular economy does not increase the GDP. How can a circular economy improve the GDP of the country?
So it can. It can if you look at GDP with regard to skilling. Because as per the agenda, the G20 discussions were all about first the climate benefits of circular economy, because you're not mining. And I think the Ministry of Mines can actually talk about, every time that you mine a material, you're actually emitting resources. You have multiple minerals which are also not, the minor fractions are also not possible to utilize it. So one element is by, of course, looking at the mining in itself as a sector, but also looking at the entire GDP contribution through skilling. You can have, and that's what China is doing. That's what multiple countries, even in the EU, where it's a it's not labor intensive market, no? Where you don't have so many manual workers, right? So there the entire approach is automation, looking at how do you create these loops which are circular. But in India, we have the manual labor which can actually be skilled. You have technologies, you only need investments. That's where we are kind of looking at struggling with different resources. Yeah.
Yeah, so I will just like to add that.
2 points to what he is asking. See, we have to just remember that extraction of these minerals, which are present in very small quantities, like gallium, 25 ppm parts per million is the cutoff, industrial cutoff. It can be extracted. So when we extract from the, whether we extract from the primary ore or from the recycled material, from the waste, so the process remains the same. It is basically hydrometallurgy, lot of acid leaching is involved. It is very polluting. So number one is when we recycle the product, it is less energy is consumed, less cost is involved. The product comes back into the cycle, and then the import dependence is reduced. Lot of jobs are, primary and secondary jobs are created. So in multiple ways it benefits the economy.
Yeah, so now we come to the end of the session. We had a very good discussion from our distinguished panelists. Now, for felicitating them, I request the IMC team for distributing the mementos. Dr. Shilpi Karmak. Shri Pankaj Meglani. Shri Pradeep Singh ji. Ms. Shivangi Agrawal. Now I request Shri Pradeep Singh ji to please give memento to Shri R.N. Palai sir. Thank you very much.